everybody doing? 75, sunny, you're in Florida, no state income tax, right? It's all good? When you do come to Gulf Power, and a couple of us have already mentioned it, but it is all about safety and the importance of the great leaders that work at this company, Southern Company, the parent. And I want to give a shout out to Rick Byers. Where's Rick? I saw Rick that focuses on economic development. And my friend Keith Hoskins, he's a very humble gentleman over there, but he made sure that we all slept well at night and flew those fancy airplanes for us when he was in the Navy, and now he's doing great things with Gulf Power. But I know you don't want to hear a politician talk too much, so I'm going to make it quick. But I want to say thank you to everyone that's from Northwest Florida. Can you show of hands who's from Okaloosa, Walton? Wow, amazing. You know, as the mayor, we were fortunate to win in 2010, and we focused the entire 7.5 years on growth and business and creating the right environment for businesses to thrive in our community. I look at Northwest Florida as our region. There's 1.5 million people west of Tallahassee, 21 million people in the great state of Florida. However, in Northwest Florida, we like to think that we're driving growth and economic development and working together across the region so we can win. As we all know, more jobs, more people. That's very important to obviously our tax base, but most importantly, bringing smart people here. And that's what Mr. Mori does with JETRO. So Mr. Mori, thank you. I want to thank UWF and the Japan Center, Jim, what they do out there at University of West Florida. It's very important to really focus on the young folks coming out of UWF. But working together and working on that investment in Japan, I believe we've had 15,000 companies over in Japan that we've worked with in America, and obviously in Florida and the Atlanta region in the Southeast, bringing that investment dollars, exporting back to America. Hitachi's a big partner here in Pensacola. It's very important. And I know we have some friends from my now to the east coast of Jacksonville that I wanted to give a big shout out to. Cyberdyne, where's Cyberdyne? Thank you for being here. That means a lot. I know it's, did you fly or drive?
I drove from Jacksonville.
You're a good man. I tend to get too boring, just talk a lot on the phone. And where's Wayne Jones? Is Wayne here? Yes. Wayne, thank you so much for being here. That's very important. Obviously from Hitachi. And then obviously David Johnson. Where's David? Is David here? David, thanks for being here. And I think, you know, we have a great group here, but most importantly, working together, sharing best practices, and focused on growth. And you're never going to hear me talk about growth too much, because if we don't have growth, we're not winning, we're not focusing on bringing people here to our great region. So I want to again thank Mr. Mori and what JETRO does and giving me an opportunity to say a few words. Again, we're focused on building businesses locally and recruiting businesses from the outside. If we can't do it in Pensacola, we'll work with one of our partners in the region. We're happy about Cyberdyne being over in Jacksonville. I have a lot of friends over there. But in Florida, we want to recruit more businesses to Florida. And Mr. Mori, thank you for what JETRO does. And again from Pensacola, I want to say thank you as the mayor. It's very humbling to be with all you smart people in this room, all right? Thank you. Jim?
All right. Thank you for that exciting vision of where we're heading. I mean, growth is amazing. So, keeping us moving forward, I want to next, it's my honor to introduce Mr. Norikazu Mori, the Chief Executive Director of JETRO Atlanta. So he will provide our keynote address today, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Jim-san. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to welcome all of you to this forum today. Thank you very much. My name is Mori. I'm Chief Executive Director of JETRO Atlanta. I'm so honored to hold this JETRO seminar at the Pensacola. I'm really prestigious Gulf Power Auditorium today. And Mr. Steve. Thank you very much. And providing us a beautiful venue. I have made 3 reasons why we're holding this business seminar in Pensacola. First one is Miss Honda. She is representative of the Japan American Society in Pensacola. Endeavor and very strong. I appreciate that. And also Mr. Stanley. Mr. Stanley is, helps a lot, help us a lot to PR to introduce this event to the local media. Thank you very much for both of you. And also, second reason is existence of long and bold relations, such as the sister city among Pensacola and the Ghetto City in Japan. And also, UWF Japan Center has a good relation with the GK group of college in Japan. Lastly, beautiful beach in this region, this attracts me very much. Sorry. This is today's agenda. I covered, as you see the agenda, I'd like to cover this, about these today. And JETRO has established as a government-funded agent in 1958. We will celebrate 60th anniversary this year. We focus on promoting both way investment promotion, supporting Japanese affiliated company in the US, and promoting FDI to Southeast in collaborating with the local government. JETRO, my office, covering 4 major states in Southeast. And from next month, we will start to cover Tennessee and North Carolina as well. Let me talk about why grassroots relationships is important here. Firstly, Japan-US summit held at November at Tokyo, as you see the picture. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
So we're going to take like a 3-minute break. Pixar. Never mind. We're back on track. Hooray.
Sorry about this. Let me continue. As you see, both leaders share the view to enhance grassroots level of efforts in regional cities over US. According to this commitment, JETRO and Japanese government will put more effort to create the healthy partnerships in grassroots level. Secondly, I suppose there are many business chances in Southeast region to match up with the Japanese investment. Do you remember these pictures? Do you remember that this is quite popular in the 80s? The economic relationships between US and Japan overcame the period of trade frictions of 80s and 90s. And today, we can say it stands as the most solid bilateral trade relationships in the world. In fact, there are over 1,000 Japanese companies in the 7 states in Southeast. They have created more than 170,000 jobs locally. Investment by Japanese firms has firmly taken roots in the Southeast. In addition to that, the export value of Japanese companies in US account for 5% of the total export value of US. Looking at the regional trend, the Japanese company have robustly invested in the manufacturing sector of the Midwest, primarily in the automotive industry. However, they are now increasing focus on the Southeast. So this for the several reasons. The region has growing population. It offers reasonable business cost. It is major logistics hub, and it offers proximity to the Latin American market. But above all else, the Japanese companies are passionate about investing in Southeast thanks to effort made by each individual state and local government. I guess if the tax and the infrastructure bill, reform bills are implemented by the Trump's administration, it stimulates more investment from Japanese companies because they have 450 trillion yen in cash for capital investment potentially. In order to facilitate grassroots business partnerships, we, JETRO, are committed to hold related events. First, we had the hold both-way investment seminar at Atlanta last October. President Carter has given us the supportive message that because he is quite popular as a contributor for starting business relations among Georgia and Japan by inviting YKK factories in 1972 when he was governor. At this event, we had more than 100 audience from local business community. Our chairman Shige delivered a message regarding to the importance of multi-trade agreement rather than bilateral one. As you see the maps, that we will have more grassroots forum in Southeast, as you see. Particularly in Florida, I think the service industry is one of the promising sector. We made 7 pages of guidebooks that contain Florida's lifestyle and business climate for the Japanese business to initial consideration of entering market. End of this month, about 40 business delegation leading by the mayor of Miami-Dade County will visit Japan and hold business seminar in Tokyo. So we want to dispatch service sector business mission from Japan to Florida later this year. Some of you might participate in this. We had also organized the business matching event on the aerospace sector last October. 25 Japanese companies has attended and had a business talk. Actually, JBO was a big sponsor for this event. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. And we had pretty much a good turnout. And this slide show you workshop and the facility tour at Orlando area. The next one at Palm Beach and Miami, we had also a matchmaking event at the factory and the airport tour for aviation group. Senator Bill Nelson greeted the delegation at the Miami airport. Some of you might group of space sector. They visited Lockheed Martin and hold a business matching event at the Space Coast. Not only the aerospace, we also, for the automotive sector, we had the business matching event for the Japanese auto supplier at the Southern Automotive Conference last October in Birmingham, Alabama. The Governor Ivey stopped by the Japanese booth. This year, we will also do the same type of the event in Atlanta between October 3rd to 5th. Japan is the center of the movement toward the economic integration within Asia. Since the start of the Abe administration, Japan has been active in negotiation free trade agreements. At the same time, the Abe administration has been carrying out regulatory reforms to make Japan the most business-friendly countries in the world. We have seen results in the regulations on tourism, medical care, and agriculture. This has resulted in an actual increase in investment into Japan, with a company using Japan as a gateway to the Asian market. Why are these multilateral trade agreements rapidly developing within Asia? Because we are now in the era of supply chain, which are growing more complex as companies aim for more efficient productivity. Investors select free and open-ended economic zone where products, service, funds, information, and workforce can easily cross borders. These advantages only shine even more when part of the multilateral frameworks. But more important than anything else is the deep understanding of the significant investment promotion at the local level. The support and incentive for Japanese companies provided by state government in the US has been invaluable. However, state governments are not able to conclude country-level trade agreements. Making the Southeast a more attractive investment destination requires all of its states to speak as one, to make a persistent call on the federal government to maintain and promote multilateral free trade framework. This will encourage Japanese companies to further invest in the Southeast area. Here I would like to emphasize one thing. Investment in Japan by US companies never result in the loss of jobs in US. Most US companies invest in Japan for one of two reasons. The first is to enter the world's third largest market. The second is to do the research and development that can only be done in Japan. These are completely different type of investment than those which result in the closure of production line in the US in order to save cost. In fact, the investment into Japan's correlate with the maintenance and even expansion of jobs back home in the US. In the end of my presentation, I'd like to introduce one survey result for the Japanese affiliated company in the US. More than 10% of Japanese manufacturers in the US respond to this survey. Thanks to US strong economy, about 80% of Japanese companies are making profit by doing business in the US. Last 6 years. So they want to increase local employment, but their biggest challenge is to train workforce, to maintain good engineer and management for making high quality and competitive products. As I told before, I guess more capital investment from Japanese company are coming to Southeast for sure. But the 30% company which utilize NAFTA are concerning the negotiation of NAFTA. From those survey results, you can download from our homepage. I can send address to your email address. So I wish this help invite Japanese investors to this area. We are eager to welcome more investment both direction. I would like to finish by saying just one thing. If you consider business with Japan, talk to us, JETRO, first. Thank you very much. And if you have questions about our services, I can talk after 3 o'clock. This is it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing that with us. So the next portion of our program features 3 success stories that came out of this idea of grassroots business partnership. And so it's a great privilege to introduce you to Dr. Douglas Trelpa. I'm sorry. My apologies. It is, before we launch into our success stories, I actually have the great pleasure to introduce Trevin Dye, who's the Assistant Director of Business Development. So please, Mr. Dye, come on up and share your story. Let me get you your slides here. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'll be brief, I promise. So this is kind of piggybacking on what Mori-san just said. I'm going to go through a few of the slides relevant to our services because I know that we're meeting later this afternoon, so we can go into it a little bit more at that time. But I just wanted to give you an overview in the meantime. So, although the assistance of JETRO is not limited by industry, this slide kind of goes through a few attractive sectors, some of the most or the highest priority sectors that we have in Japan right now. So I just wanted to go through them very briefly to give you an idea of what's happening in Japan. Now, this is not an exhaustive list, but these are some that you might find quite interesting. So, starting with electricity and renewable energy. So following the 2011 earthquake, which of course everybody knows about, Japan is focused much more on being more self-sufficient and moving more to green energy. So this is creating great opportunities for foreign companies, especially through the regulations in the energy sector and fintech, et cetera. So this is really picking up speed right now in the Japanese market. And we're seeing it most pronounced in the solar industry. So that's something that we're seeing a lot. Life science is the next. As I said, I'll move quickly. Life science and actually biopharmaceuticals. These are being driven by the aging population in Japan and healthcare in general. As we know, the population of Japan is aging quite rapidly. So this is not only creating opportunities in healthcare, but also for companies that can provide other services for the elderly, including recreation and other things that we don't really think about here. So we're seeing a lot of companies that are being active in that field as well. Interestingly, smart robots, Japan is #1 for industrial and service robots right now, smart robots. The demand for service robots right now is growing by 13.9% per year, and it will do so projected by 2035, so that's a huge market for foreign companies right now in the tech space. Smart agriculture, precision farming has picked up quite a bit. Right now, smart agriculture in Japan, I think, is in 2015 it was 9.72 billion yen, and by 2022 it will jump to 33.19 billion yen. So that's huge, and that's driven by manned manned equipment and systems being used in addition to manned equipment. So that's a huge opportunity for companies right now. In virtual reality and augmented reality, I put it's evolving from sheer entertainment in Japan, which is how it has been used traditionally, to other industries, including medicine, tourism, retail, and manufacturing. So we're seeing a huge uptick in that, and of course AI is right around the corner as well. Japan is is quite active in all of those spaces. Tourism, of course, is ongoing. Everybody's loves to go to Japan, but regionally, they're attracting more and more people as well. So that's going to have an uptick, especially prior to the Olympics in 2020. The service industry, as Mr. Mori mentioned, is always a huge market in Japan. So we're seeing, even in the Atlanta office, we see a lot of retail companies that want to get in front of visitors before 2020 as well. Storefronts, high-end retail, et cetera. And of course, fintech, as I mentioned, is being deregulated. Cloud and IT communications being driven by mobile applications. So that's only going to continue to grow as well. Okay, I included this slide because Zenalytics is our most recent success case out of the Atlanta office. This is actually an Alpharetta, Georgia-based company, which is just north of the city. We're seeing Atlanta sort of becoming a Silicon Valley, if you will. That word keeps getting thrown around in Atlanta. But this company has recently entered the Japanese market with the assistance of the deregulation of the energy industry. So they create solutions for payment or to process payments for energy companies in Japan. So that's a huge thing for them. And they're really growing right now, which is great. Okay, I included this slide because JETRO is kind of a one-stop shop for companies to help them ease the burden of going to Japan by themselves. So this is just kind of an overview of a lot of the services that JETRO can offer companies, and these are all free of charge, which is a great attraction for a lot of companies. Everything from market reports to business partnering programs or business partnership programs, regional incentives. This is particularly interesting because for companies that are willing to do business outside of Tokyo, there are a lot of great incentives for them. And most companies don't really think about what to do outside of metropolitan Tokyo. So this is a huge advantage to many companies depending on the sector that they're in. Now, free incubator office space right here, the temporary office space. This is kind of our biggest tool at JETRO. There's 6 major offices spread around Japan, and this enables companies to use office space. It says 2 months, and in some cases you can extend that. But it's basically allowing companies to use it as a hub while they're in Japan without having to really pay for anything except for their phone fax line, which is, I mean, most people don't even use that now, so it's basically free. So they're specialists in-house. Everything the company would need is in-house. Free HR resources, free registrations, everything they would need is basically housed in this IBSC center. And it's flexible, as I said, because they're around major cities. So depending on what companies need and to what extent they are using the resources in Japan, I think JETRO is a great stop to basically exhaust all of the free resources before they start paying for things. So that's kind of the biggest advantage to using JETRO. Additionally, many companies contact us at the office wanting to get into China, but we always say that Japan is a great way to start as a springboard into China, especially if there are intellectual property issues. You know, you're kind of protected in Japan, and you can springboard into other countries as needed. So I think that's pretty much my overview. I know we're going to talk about this a little later, and we can be a lot more specific, but we have to stay on the timeline. So at 3 o'clock, maybe we can discuss it a little bit more. For those of you that are interested, we can go into a little more detail and into more specifics with your questions as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm glad we didn't miss that. I know a lot of the people in this room's ears are perking up at some of the things they have going on there. A lot of people working in these spaces. So with that, I believe we are now moving into the next section where we are going to feature the 3 case studies. And to introduce that, it is a privilege to introduce Dr. Douglas Trelpa from the Japan Center, the director of the Japan Center at UWF, who will be moderating this next session. So thank you very much for attending.
Thank you very much. As Jim mentioned, I'm the director of the Japan Center at the University of West Florida. We're very proud of the Japan Center and Japan House. It's an authentic Japanese house with a garden and an authentic Japanese tea room. Ms. Shigeko Honda here is the founder. It's a house that Shigeko built, and it's a wonderful place to share Japanese culture. We have some students from UWF here, and our role is really to educate the next generation of students who are interested in Japan, and to provide them with opportunities to learn about Japan, to learn the Japanese language, and to go to Japan. So it's my pleasure to have taken the role from Shigeko 5 years ago. And it's wonderful that she's here, maybe 4 years ago. Yeah, anyhow, yeah. Just a few years back, and I've been, many of you know me in the room, but for those who haven't, I've been interested in Japan for a long time because my mother was born in Hiroshima, and so she got me really interested in Japan. And I remember when she came into second grade classroom wearing a kimono and taught everybody how to write their name in katakana. That was really cool for me. It helped me adjust to school in the United States. And I've been showing my classmates Japanese products ever since. At that time it was just maybe the Ultraman cards and little pachinko sets that I had. But today we're going to it's a totally different world. So we're going to be looking at some incredible products from Japan. So it's my pleasure to introduce the next speaker. And I think we're just going to go in order, right? Is that okay? Are we going to do this in sets, or are we just going to do it individually with the 3 case studies? So I guess first up will be Mr. Hiroki Kimura, who drove all the way from Jacksonville today on the 10. With this in the car, fortunately, wasn't pulled over by Florida Highway Patrol.
Hello, my name is Hiroki Kimura. I am the Chief Clinical Affairs Officer for Cyberdyne USA. And I'm here to talk about our recently established joint venture company. And we recently opened up a Brooks Cybernetic Treatment Center. It's a joint venture between Brooks Rehabilitation Hospital and Cyberdyne Inc. So let me just quickly talk a bit about who Brooks is, and then we'll talk about who Cyberdyne is, and then we'll go from there. So again, this is a completely new, newly established joint venture. We actually just had our opening ceremony last Friday, which Mr. Mori was generous enough to come. Thank you very much for joining us for that event. Yeah, so a little bit about Brooks. So Brooks Rehabilitation Hospital is a network of hospitals that services the southeastern U.S. mainly. It is one of the largest inpatient rehabilitation hospitals, and has about 160 beds, 45,000 patients annually. It's been servicing the southeastern U.S. for the last 45 years. As you can see, outside of the rehab hospital, they have a lot of, they work with a lot of skilled nursing, home health, assisted living, other outpatient therapies as well. One of the things that drew us to Brooks is also the community outreach after therapy. They are very involved in, for example, adaptive sports and a recreation program that keeps people who are who've been discharged from the rehab hospital involved in the community, which is a really, really important aspect of their recovery. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Cyberdyne. So Cyberdyne is a company in Japan. It's a technology company, And the goal for Cyberdyne is, that's our little motto there, technology should be for humans and society. As Mr. Dai mentioned earlier, one of the major problems that Japan faces is an aging population, an aging workforce. And that is one of our main issues that we want to tackle with technology. And one aspect of that is in the healthcare field, and that's what I'll be talking about mostly today. Although I should mention we do develop technology for other fields like construction, logistics, things like that as well. But I'll be talking about the healthcare side today. So I brought with us, so this is actually a picture of the Brookside Burn Treatment Center that just opened. You can see 2 patients there. They are spinal cord injury patients, typically wheelchair bound, and they are now standing using our robots, which I brought one of them here today. Yeah, so basically the idea behind this robot is that, I'll do a quick demonstration as well. Basically, when a person tries to move their leg, the brain sends a command signal down the spinal cord, through the motor nerves into the muscles. And when these muscles receive those signals, they contract and provide you the actual movement. And also, at the same time, when these signals reach those muscles, these very faint electrical signals appear on the surface of the skin. And in patients like these, with spinal cord injury, obviously their signal from the brain to the legs, for example, are interrupted because of their injury, and so they're not able to actually recruit the muscles to move. And what's very special about this, what's unique about this robot is that it's very, very sensitive to those signals. So even with these patients, very, very faint signals are able to be picked up. And based on those signals, the robot will move. And so basically, the patient who's in the robot can walk essentially according to their own intent. So it's not really a balance thing. They're not leaning forward and it's automatically moving them for them. Everything is dependent on how the signals are transmitted from their brain to the robot. And that's what leads to their rehabilitation. So a quick demonstration that I'll do for you. So before I go on, I already have a couple surface electrodes attached to my leg here. And through these cords, I'm going to attach to the robot. And once I activate it, I'll show you the robot in action. Okay. So, because I'm a healthy person, when I lift my leg up, the robot will move with me. Like so. You know, my brain is sending commands to my legs, and it's picking up those signals and moving forward. Now, to mimic or to kind of simulate a patient who has a spinal cord injury, for example, it doesn't have strong enough signals coming down. I'm going to do the same thing, command this robot, without actually moving my leg. I'm just going to send very, very faint signals to the robot, and we'll see. So I'm going to pick my leg up, bend the knee, extend, bend, extend. So as you can see, when a patient with spinal cord injury is able to do that, they can get enough steps that are connected to the brain, and that feedback will help them regain their ability to walk. It is a rehabilitated device. It's not something you take home and you wear to walk around at home, for example. It's meant to be used in the hospital, and it's meant to improve your walking ability so that when you're done with the treatment, you can take this off and hopefully you can walk or walk better. That's a quick demonstration of what the device does. I'm going to show you a little bit about some of the effects. So this is a patient in Germany actually that we studied. This is a spinal cord injury patient who went through this treatment. He did 12 weeks of therapy with this robot. And you can see in the beginning, He's walking with a walker. He's got a caregiver with him constantly. And then you can see after the 12 weeks of treatment, he's now walking on his own, just with a cane. And again, this is important for us because we want these people who are disabled, who typically wouldn't be able to go back to work, for example, to return and be a productive part of society. And that's important, again, because we have an aging society, diminishing workforce. We want to get as many people involved and be productive. All right, so now we are back to this main slide, which is, I just want to get back to the purpose of our joint venture. One of the major hurdles that we've encountered coming to the U.S., for example, was the FDA clearance. And it took us 3 years to go through that process, which is a long time. I think it was partly because of unfamiliarity with the system, partly maybe some translational issues as well. And so, it was important for us to find a successful business to work with in Brooks to help us expand our business as quickly as possible. Someone who's familiar with the system and help us grow as quickly as possible. And we're happy to have that going through Florida to the rest of the U.S. All right, so that's about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hiroki. We'll save the questions for after everybody gets their presentation. So I believe Mr. Michael Spiegel, am I pronouncing that correctly? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. He's not able to make it, so that will be case study number 1. I really feel like we're living in the future now. This is mind-boggling technology. I was thinking of the Terminator movie. It seems like it may be coming true. And also that Japanese "All You Need Is Kill" that was made into a film. It was a Japanese novel about wearing exoskeletons and fighting an invading alien force. So I think that future is coming very soon. Yes,
We're very aware of that possibility. We've been very specifically not going for a military route. We want to.
Oh, okay, yes. Very good point. Next, I would like to introduce Mr. Wayne Jones, Executive Director from the Hitachi, our local Japanese company. Former Japanese.
Yes. Okay. I could be best if I'm not touch that too much.
Sure. Which one are you? Two.
All right, great. All right, thank you. All right, good afternoon. I just want to tell you a little bit about your local Hitachi facility. You have a facility here in Pensacola, Florida, about 15 minutes away, part of Mother Hitachi. So I'd like to explain to you where we fit and what we make here in Pensacola, okay? So, we are part of Hitachi. You have Hitachi Limited. Our company is Hitachi Metals Limited, wholly owned subsidiary of Hitachi Limited. The holding company in America is Hitachi Metals Limited. And under that umbrella, we have 4 companies, F, G, S, and C Company. The local Pensacola facility is part of C Company, so I'll talk about that. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about what the rest of Hitachi Metals America makes, but there are about 8,000 people employed by Hitachi Metals America. So we're just a piece of that, a rather large piece, but still a piece. C Company, what do we do? Well, there's 2 divisions of C Company. We have the Performance Cable Systems and Materials Division, and then we have the Automotive Products Division. That's what we do here in Pensacola, part of the Automotive Products Division. Hitachi Cable America, we make wiring cable and automotive components. We also make medical tubing and tooling. The other division, their factories are in New Hampshire and Rhode Island. We Hitachi automotive systems are in Querétaro, Mexico, which is located northwest to, I think it was Nashville, and they had open floor space. They wanted to get away from a bad situation in Indiana, in the northern part of Indiana, Fort Wayne area, and so they moved it into Pensacola. In 1998, Eklund was purchased by Dana Corporation. Probably heard of Dana. In 1999, Pacer Industries ceased operations and it became 100% dedicated to brake hose assemblies. 2007, Dana sold the coupled products division to a private investor. And then in early 2008, that investor sold the brake hose business to Hitachi Cable at the time. And Hitachi Cable Florida Incorporated was formed. We were a standalone company here in Pensacola. Since that time, we have merged with other Hitachi Cable companies, and we're now part of Hitachi Cable America. So that's how we became Hitachi. We've been Hitachi, I guess, about 10 years now, and Hitachi is a very good company. We were very fortunate. I was part of the acquisition. They acquired me with the factory. I was a plant manager here in Pensacola. So we were very fortunate. Hitachi bought us February 29th of 2008, and then shortly thereafter we had what our Japanese parent likes to call the layman shock. If we had not been owned by Hitachi or a Hitachi-like company, we would have been shut down. But they believed in us and the future, and so we survived and we have thrived in Pensacola. So very, very fortunate that Hitachi purchased us. So why are we here? As I said, it's a bit of luck. Why do we stay? The people. We have a very good workforce, a very stable workforce. We do notice this time of year a little more competitive because the tourist industry is cranking up. But it's a very good workforce, very agreeable workforce. They're very open to new things, which is great. You always, and particularly in automotive, but in all of industry, you have to always be getting better, right? If you're not getting any better, you're moving backwards. So very fortunate to have the workforce. And then we like the fact that it's a diverse community. We have had Japanese persons in our factory working there, but we don't at the present time. We have a lot of different nationalities. Pensacola, as you well know, has a lot of different nationalities, and makes it for a very interesting place. So we are proud to be part of this community, and with that, I'll thank you very much.
We're certainly very proud to have the Hitachi factory here in Pensacola. I'm very proud of that. Very grateful to them. Next up, so that's a very successful case study, and we'll move on to our third case study, which is the Jabil. Am I pronouncing that right? Jabil? Jabil, yeah, Jabil, which I did not know about until coming to Florida. I found out it's a huge corporation. And Mr. David Johnson is here to talk about that. Do you have a presentation?
Yes, I do. Back while it's being set up, I'll give a brief overview of who we are and give you some ideas on how companies use us for their success. Yeah, that's it. And then I'm going to turn it over to Girish, who's here with me, and he'll tell you about some of the technologies that we're involved in that certainly affect you here. So who is Jabil? A lot of people don't know us, so this is a good place to start. We've been around for 50 years. We're the third largest electronics manufacturing service provider in the world. We do about $19 billion in revenue, and we have about $1.2 billion in cash. We have management that's been with us an average of probably around 20 years, so a lot of stability in management, unusual for an American company. 180,000 employees. We're an investment grade company, so we're big, we're a good solid company. We're headquartered in Florida, proud to be so. We're down in St. Petersburg. We also have operations though at 100 sites in 29 countries around the world. That's all interesting, but really what does Jabil do? Well, what we do in a nutshell is we make things for people. And in that process, we also buy the components that go into that and help distribute and so on. So what do we make, and who do we make these for? We make things for other people through 5 different groups in the company. One of those is the Engineered Solution Group. Now they service 4 different sectors: automotive and transportation, connected consumer tech, energy and industrial, printed and retail. But some of the specific examples, half of the world, more than half of the meters that are used in the world, this is more than half in the world, use electronics made by Jabil in them. If you use terminals like that at a store, chances are it was made in the Jabil factory. But it's not just things like that. We also do things like flow batteries for grid scale application, windmills. You have a GE plant nearby here. We supply them on some of the things that go into their product, but we also do things that go into other windmills. We also produce a large portion of personal and commercial printers in the world. We also worked with Hewlett-Packard as they developed their 3D printers. We helped them with the development process, and we also use them in our manufacturing process as well. So that's been a good partnership for us. Another one of the groups is enterprise and infrastructure. Now, if you use a cell phone, I know Stan likes this, if you use a cell phone, chances are you're touching on Jabil-made product somewhere, whether it's the phone or if it's the tower, the network, the switching gear, the servers, even the cooling equipment that cools the servers that provide you the answer to the question you Googled. That will have been made by Jabil as well. So we're involved in all of those. This sector provides capital equipment, computer storage, communication, and access equipment as well. We also have a group that does packaging. So if you've ever used a Procter & Gamble product, maybe it could have been something that we produce. We do consumer health. This part is over-the-counter stuff. Food and beverage, consumer packaged goods, industrial and professional. We also have a group called Nipro Healthcare. Now they operate in diagnostics, pharmaceutical delivery systems, medical devices, and consumer health. But you can just see a few of the examples here, whether it's consumable devices or hemodialysis machines. We make all of these. Now, who do we make these things for? Here are a list of our biggest companies that we provide these services for, but there's also smaller companies like, we talked about companies that are coming up with new products in the new industry. Perhaps you've heard of Kaya. You'll find out that their growth was based on their partnership with us. We also have companies as customers like Keurig, iRobot, Whirlpool, Tesla, Johnson Controls. So quite a few different areas that we service. We also do work with quite a few Japanese companies. Now, here are some examples. We provide manufacturing services for industrial power, for printing, for medical devices, and for communication. Most of the work we do with Japanese companies is what's called out-out. We manufacture products for them outside of Japan, for sale outside of Japan, but we probably do something a little shy of $1 billion of business with them. We also do a lot of work in aerospace, and I bring this up because one of our primary manufacturing location for military and aerospace products is here in Florida. And that gives an opportunity for companies that want to participate in the aerospace industry in Florida to avail themselves of an excellent manufacturing facility that's also qualified to do this kind of work. I'll give you an example of some of the things that we make. Communications equipment, vehicle electronics, power distribution systems, avionics, homeland security related things. You can see examples here. Typically we make sub-assemblies or in the case of the ruggedized equipment, it would be that equipment itself. We also have a growing manufacturing presence in machine structural parts. So why do companies use Jabil? The main thing is we can help companies do things cheaper and faster. Companies can get into manufacturing in a particular location faster than if they try to buy their own brick and mortar. If they try to hire people, there's all kinds of things when you go into a new market. We can also start production on a smaller scale than you can by yourself. Now that's important if you're trying to bring jobs to Florida or you need to establish one of your own facilities someplace in the world, and it's hard to do that yourself right away. It allows you to focus your effort on resources and market development. You can leave the hiring, the production, the procurement, and the execution to us. It conserves cash when you do that because you're not buying inventory. You're not putting a brick and mortar in. You can put your cash towards developing your business. And also you can benefit from a number of capabilities that we have. And I'm going to let Girish talk to more of that in a minute. But once we started making things for people, companies asked us to help them with the innovation process, with design. How do we plan for this? How do we manage their supply chain? How do we deliver product to the end market and so on? So we've gotten to work in a lot of that. And I'll just give you one example that covers the supply chain side. We've needed to put in analytic and visualization systems for total supply chain management down into lower levels. And what we do, just a few examples here, is help customers answer the questions of, well, where are our vulnerabilities? And how can we protect our vulnerabilities in the supply chain? It's usually not the most expensive part, but the cheap part that, if it doesn't get supplied, is going to stop you in your tracks. How can we reduce our cost and help you be more responsive to the market? Or when something bad happens, and it will, a tsunami happens in Japan and it wipes out a whole bunch of component suppliers, within hours or even minutes, we can tell you what the impact on your production and revenue is and what components are affected by that and what you can do to mitigate that to the maximum extent possible. We do this for our customers, again, within minutes of an event like that happening. This is a resource that's pretty powerful. We also have a couple of plants in Japan for companies wanting to go into Japan with manufacturing. And a lot of times you'll find that for the Japanese market, it's helpful to have that experience there. We've got a couple of excellent facilities that can support. But we also took advantage of JETRO's support when we did a lot of this. For example, when we first set up our office in Japan, we took advantage of the market entry support that was just described to you. We borrowed space in the office while we looked for and set up our own office. When we purchased the facility that you see here down on the left, we used both the Atlanta office and the Tokyo office for our market research and doing our due diligence on the market, the industry, and where to locate a facility. Although it's not here, we also took advantage of the Florida-Japan Aerospace Summit, both in Japan 2 years ago and last year, to get more exposure to those companies to try and bring more of that Japanese business here into Florida. So in all of those ways, JETRO has been a very good support for us. Now I'd like to turn it over to Girish, who's going to tell you about some of the more fun and exciting things we're doing.
One moment, please. This is not a problem, just takes a second to switch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So good afternoon. Thanks to JETRO for inviting us to stand for involving us in the agenda. David introduced JBIL. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about a few manufacturing processes that JBIL uses in order to manufacture some or all the products that David talked about. Towards the end, I will speak a little bit about Industry 4.0, which is about the digitalization of the industry and the manufacturing process as we digitalize our lives, so the industry is also being digitalized. I was told that I could speak up to 5 o'clock, so so real quickly, we have some strategic capabilities that go across all the different divisions and different customers that David spoke of. These are the different capability focus areas that kind of allow us to bring the products that we use in a day-to-day life into the market. And I'll go through each of these and kind of point out some of the areas where we overlap with Japanese partners. I'll also point out a few areas where we do some of that development here in St. Petersburg in Florida. Okay? So when we think of advanced assembly or miniaturization, it is about taking electronic components and then mounting them on primarily printed circuit boards and make them as small as possible. But at the same time, we are taking a look at how we can add these electronic components directly onto the final products without using a printed circuit board. So a printed circuit board essentially is a rectangular piece. If you open up or break your smartphone or your laptop, that you will see that houses pretty much all the components. So for example, in this case here, we are mounting what is called as an LED or a light emitting diode directly on a plastic part, and then that plastic part can be used as a tail light for a motorcycle or for a vehicle. In this case, we are seeing a capacitor. One of the capacitor partners is a Japanese company. So this particular product component is currently assembled in products such as smartphones. If you look at this product component here, that is the component that is about half that size of that component. And that's the process we are currently developing, actually using a Japanese placement manufacturing partner. This is the process that allows us to take a processor and stack memory on top of each other. This is how smartphones or tablets are produced in different configuration, like 8 GB or 16 GB or 64 GB. Essentially what we do is we have the bottom processing or the computer, and then at the top of it, depending on what kind of memory our customers want us to mount, we will mount either an 8 GB, 16 GB memory directly during the production flow. So this is how you get different memories within the consumer devices that we use. This particular process is about getting capacitive touch assemblies on your control panel. So if you go to any big box retailer that sells appliances, and if you find washing machines, dryers and ovens that don't have knobs but operate with just capacitive touch, then the process of assembling that capacitive touch is essentially taking a printed circuit board and laminating that with the glue to the plastic part or to the glass part. And that process was developed here in St. Petersburg and then deployed for high volume manufacturing sites. So adhesives are common materials that are used to create all the products that we use. Similar to how we use adhesive in our house to say put picture frames up or to glue broken parts together, adhesives are also used inside the products. And there are predominantly three different functions of an adhesive. The first primary function that all of us are really familiar with is to bond two surfaces together. The second function is to conduct heat or to conduct electricity. For example, when we mount components on these CPU fabrics, you use a conductive adhesive, and that allows you to conduct electricity through the joint with the substrate, and that's how these LEDs are lighted up. And then of course we use adhesives to protect parts. So you can apply adhesive on top of your components, and that's how your components survive harsh environments such as automotive, as well as harsh environments such as the use of a smartphone by my daughter, right? That's how we increase the life of products. So these are primarily some of the material capabilities that we work on in order to build products today. The next piece that is really growing up primarily through one of the consortia that was funded by the Department of Defense and is currently managed through the FRL is NextClicks. And what this consortium is trying to do is it trying to come up with different processes that will allow you to add conductive traces on any substrate. So now we can add a conductive trace on plastic, we can add it on flexible glass, we can add it on fabric, and potentially leather. And if you are able to add all these conductive traces on any kind of substrates, then basically you are able to add electronics directly to that substrate. If anybody has used a sports bra or a compression garment that monitors your heart rate, then the way that process is done is that you have wires that are weaved into the textile, and then you attach an electronic heart rate monitor to the textile garment directly. With this particular process, we will be able to embed those components directly into the garment or directly into the textile without the need of using threads or beads. A lot of displays are also manufactured using
today. Thank you for participating. Our host, our Gulf Power here, and one of our great business partners is Gulf Power and Steve Rhodes and his entire team that really allows us to do what we do throughout this region and supporting our companies and our businesses and looking for partnership and outreach as we really try to grow this area and create jobs and opportunities for all of our citizens. And again, that's really what we exist for. We obviously want to thank our city and our county, Mayor Hayward for being here today, our county partners that support everything that we do every single day, and how much that actually means to us. Our business partners that were here to speak today, obviously Cyberdyne, Hitachi, and Jadeville, thank you for your time and really coming and allowing us to better understand what drives your companies, where those partnerships may be, and how we can continue those discussions as we move forward. These events obviously take a lot of folks to pull that together. I also want to thank my staff at Florida West, Sina, Dana, and Tanita for helping us and actually kind of coordinating this event. One of our business partners here in the community that really helps us get the word out and outreach, and that's the Business Radio X and the folks from Pensacola. We want to thank you for being here today. We give them a round of applause because it really helps broadcast this message beyond just today, but also how they actually post this message out and let more folks in the community that weren't able to participate today have that opportunity to really kind of hear what's going on. So I want to thank another good friend of ours that always pitches in and supports us, especially when it comes to bringing in great companies that have a connection with Japan, and that's Stanley. Stanley, thank you so much for your outreach and partnership, and appreciate what you do for us as well. Lastly is I think others have mentioned as well, and that's kind of the glue that continues to hold us together, and that's Shigeko Hondo. Thank you so much for pulling our community together and your love of the relationship between this community, this region, this state, and Japan. So thank you so much for that as well. Lastly, I'm going to bring Ms. Mori back up, and if I could, and obviously again, thank them so much for putting this together and hosting a wonderful lunch for us today. But more importantly, Ms. Mori and his team are going to actually be staying afterwards for more in-depth conversations with those companies that are here, to look at further partnerships, further opportunities to work together. Again, whether it's a company that wants to grow and export products and services outside the U.S., whether it's a company that wants to make investments and foreign direct investment here in the United States, and particularly in Florida, that's what they do, and they do very, very well. So again, a great partner, and we look forward to a long-standing.
Of Mexico City. We have 2 manufacturing locations here in the United States. The division headquarters and manufacturing is in New Albany, Indiana. We have an engineering and sales office in Farmington Hills, Michigan, which is the Detroit area. And our headquarters for HCA, for Hitachi Cable America, is in New York. But then we have our manufacturing facility here in Pensacola, Florida. So, Pensacola. We are located in the Ellison Industrial Park on Eli Road. We have about 168,000 square feet at that location. It sits on 10.3 acres. The building was established in 1985, and we make automotive brake hose assemblies. That's all we do at this location. Our customers are Ford, Chrysler, and Tesla. We employ 364 people at this location. The average length of service is almost 8 years. We've had 65 employees that have been with us for more than 10 years, and that is significant because, if you recall, in 2008 we had a little bit of a recession. Well, we got down pretty small in Pensacola. The automotive, obviously, as the rest of the economy, took a hit. So we do have 65 people who weathered that storm and have been with us at least that long. Interesting, we have 9 different nationalities at the facility, none of which are Japanese at the moment, but we do have a very diverse workforce. What do we make? I say automotive brake hose assemblies. Automotive brake hose assemblies, that's those, we route the fluid for your brakes, okay? Everybody's car, you want your car to stop, and you darn sure want my car to stop, right? So that fluid has to be routed, that's what we do. Our parts go on the 4 corners, or the 4 wheels of the vehicle. We go from the main line, which runs basically the length of the vehicle, to the corners. We attach to the main line, and we go out to the caliper, which is on the disc of every wheel. That's what we do here in Pensacola. Just to give you an indication, the bottom picture is a somewhat typical brake hose assembly. The far end attaches to the caliper. The other end goes up towards the middle of the vehicle. But what we do in Pensacola is we take all of those components and we put them all together. Those components come from Thailand, Italy, Mexico, China, United States, Canada, and we put them all together about 15 minutes away. And we do a lot of them. In 2017, we shipped 15.5 million brake hose assemblies out of the Pensacola facility. That's about 1.3 million every month. That's about 61,000 every day. So that's a high volume situation. We do complex, simple, and kind of medium assemblies. I won't get into the differences, but it's just more content, it's good for us. The more complex, the better for us. Our customers, as I said, Ford is our largest customer, and then Chrysler, or Fiat Chrysler. We do a very small amount for General Motors. We ship to our sister facility in Querétaro, and then we do have Tesla. Unfortunately, we do not have the Tesla that's in space. We didn't supply that, so we can't say we're in space. But not our part of Hitachi. There probably is parts of Hitachi that are in space, but not out of Pensacola. Sorry. But those are our largest customers, and these are the vehicles that we supply. So if you see these vehicles riding down the road, or if you have to drive any of these vehicles, your brake hose was made in Pensacola, Florida. I drive an F-150. All 4 of those were made in Pensacola. So we do a lot of business in Pensacola. I'm very happy to be here. But interesting to me when I first got here, I transferred in here in 2004, about 6 weeks before Mr. Ivan arrived. And it was interesting to me that we produce brake hose assemblies in Pensacola, Florida. Anyway, why are we in Pensacola? That's what most of you want to know. Well, it's a little bit of a twisted path. The facility was constructed by Eklund Incorporated as Pacer Industries in 1985. It was a distribution center for aftermarket engine parts. They had parts shipped in. They would kit those mainly for Napa, and they would be shipped to Napa.
Inks, and some of these inks are printed in processes which are very similar to a t-shirt printer. So if you have seen somebody print graphic images on a t-shirt, then it's kind of the same technology that is used to create electronics. And that's where we believe the future is, in order to make components smaller, make components lightweight, make components more flexible and conform. Acoustics is growing everywhere. We have people that like to talk to their smartphones. Now we have people that want to talk to their washing machines, they want to talk to their doors. So pretty much you want the acoustic or human-machine interaction with all devices. You can also use acoustics in the manufacturing because you can use acoustics to monitor the manufacturing process and improve the manufacturing process. So JBIL does a lot of development in terms of what kind of speaker systems to use, how to integrate them, what kind of materials to use in the assembly so that it doesn't distort the voice recognition. So when you speak with a voice recognition tower in your house, he clearly understands what you're saying. Fluidics is pretty much used in our day-to-day life. So if you look at actually a coffee brewer or a coffee machine, it's actually very complex fluidics that is involved in that. There are a lot of motors, there are a lot of pumps, engineers go through a lot of hard work in order to brew you a perfect cup in the morning. So a lot of that technology is derived through the componentry such as fluidics. Fluidics, on the other hand, is also used in medical devices and diagnostics. So currently the process to do lab analysis is to take a sample of blood, urine, or a body fluid and then send it to a lab and then put it in a big, large imaging system, and then it determines what problems you have with your health. In future, we are trying to find out if we can do that all using a smartphone locally in your house. For example, a diabetes glucose strip is a very good example of a lab-on-chip device where you have fluids, channels that direct these fluids on those strips. So these are some of the manufacturing, and I know I've gone through that fairly quickly, but I wanted to give you a high-level overview of different manufacturing techniques that are used in order to build the products that we use day in, day out. The next couple of slides, I'm going to talk about digital transformation and Industry 4.0 because I was asked to kind of introduce that topic and how it connects to all the manufacturing processes and the materials knowledge that I just talked about. So when we think of a digital twin, we are really thinking of, so today's manufacturing process, imagine, is there are hundreds of suppliers. All these suppliers create a lot of different capabilities and resources, including materials, process, and equipment. All that comes to our factories. We use all these resources to put products for us together. We ship these products out. During all these processes, there are different systems that are involved. And then data transfer from one system to the other. Sometimes it gets captured manually, sometimes it gets captured digitally, and so on and so forth. So the idea is to create a digital twin. And the digital twin will basically represent everything that went into manufacturing that one piece of hardware that you use, okay? Or that one piece of garment that you wear. So that's the idea, is to get a digital image or information of everything that is used in order to manufacture the product. And we predominantly look at it as we go across the cycle that David talked about, from innovate to manage of products, that we'll have a digital twin of materials. So I talked about adhesives. So the adhesives will have a physical glue, and you will have a 0-1 system representing that physical glue. And then there will be a digital twin for manufacturing, which will be the manufacturing process we use. Say, for example, we print something, we place something, we cut something. All that information is stored in a particular digital key, right? And then that together forms what is called a digital twin of a product. So that the materials and the manufacturer. And then ultimately what you want to do is you want to find what the digital twin of that product's performance is on the field. So when we are putting the materials and the manufacturing together, we can use the concepts of digital twin for the product and predict how the consumer or the industry is going to use that particular product. I mean, if I can predict how my daughter could use the smartphone, I could really make the smartphones more robust, right? So that's the whole idea with the digital twin, is to try and make a digital replica of the actual physical material so that you can do a lot of combinations and figure out what is the best combination of materials and manufacturing that will give you the performance that you want and that you are willing to pay for. So those are two different, those two need to go hand in hand. So again, we want to take a look at the digital thread it makes when we design the products. You want to take a look at the materials and create a digital twin for that. When you look at manufacturing, you want to take a look at equipment specifications, process recipes, and factory conditions, and combine all that to say these factory conditions or process recipes were used in order to manufacture that one unit of product that you particularly use, right? And then ultimately predict the performance of the product. Within smart manufacturing and the industrial 4.0 concept, you want to use this digital thread, which is about collecting all these digital twins of these different steps in the manufacturing process together. And you want to connect that from the design phase, when the engineers and artists sit on a sketchboard and create the concepts of a product. And then you want to convey that information into manufacturing, and then add manufacturing information on that digital thread. And then you want that digital thread to continue when the product is being used in the consumer space, so you can pull the digital thread back and then understand how the product was used, and then improve your design and improve your manufacturing. So that's kind of the high-level overview for a digital thread. Here's a quick example of the entire ecosystem. So on the left-hand side, you have these different partners. These partners bring various different resources. For example, materials manufacture not only give material, but give subject matter expertise in materials and in processing. Then there are a lot of software companies that provide software. We take all these different components and build capabilities. Then these capabilities come together within JBIL and the JBIL's ecosystem, and then that's how we deliver physical product. And what we want to do is we want to cover this entire process with a digital footprint. So when we deliver a physical product, we can also deliver a digital twin of that product. This is essentially quickly how it is used in one of the factories. Earlier, the process would be that the factory workers could collect that data. They could relay that data to a regional center. A regional center would do some analysis, provide it to the global center. The global center provides feedback. The regional center provides directions to the site. Now that doesn't happen because a lot of that process is now automated. The factory operators can take a look at their data and how it impacts product's performance and make changes on the fly if they need to. So that's kind of empowering the folks that actually build products for us. So that kind of brings us to the end of my presentation. What I really wanted to do was to give you a glimpse onto how some of the products we use every day are manufactured, what are the basic capabilities involved in that, and kind of towards the future, we are looking at integrating these electronics directly onto the products we use, and the fact that we want to use the digitalization process to improve products so all of us can be happier. With that, I would like to thank once again JETRO for inviting us, Gulf Power for not only just hosting us, but also sending volunteers down south when the hurricane came our way. So we appreciate that contribution also. All right, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much. That was wonderful. So Jabil is probably, realizing this presentation, that's probably one of the most important companies in my life in terms of waking up in the morning, looking at my smartphone, having my coffee, playing Candy Crush, probably even using the Alexa. Probably somewhere there's Jabil technology in that. So that was very informative. In fact, I think all the talks were very informative. And fortunately, we do have some time since you didn't go to 5 o'clock. We have about 25 minutes or so, but I'm sure also we can go over. And I think it would be best if everybody came up here. It might be easy, if that's okay with everybody. All the speakers to come up here and field the questions from the audience.
Testing. Yes. Hello.
Now, I have a list of questions already, so I could start with those. Or if, yeah, we may want to see if we can. Okay, yeah.
Hey, Scott, do you have a presentation? Okay, I think we're done.
All right, great. We have, that's great. That's okay. Put the blue screen afterward, put anything in the background later. Okay, so questions. Raise your hand, and okay, I saw you first. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Lisa York. I am from here in Pensacola. I'm an attorney here in town, but my question is for the gentleman from Jabil. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. I apologize. Does your company take ideas and create new things, or do you take things that are already in production and then just make them better?
So, easy way to remember Jabil is James and Bill are the two founders. That's an easy way to remember. So we do whatever our customers need. We started out just by making exactly what customers ask us to do, and that's still a lot of what we do. When our customers are wrestling with a problem, a lot of times we'll help them because we've got a broad industry experience. A lot of times we can draw on that experience. There are times, fairly often, where we'll also come up with a solution to something the customer's struggling with but hasn't asked us about, and try to bring that solution to them. So wherever we see an opportunity to help our customers, that's what we try to do. So we're really driven by that. We don't do a lot of basic research on our own. It's all related to whatever else we're doing.
Okay, next question. I saw a hand over. Yes.
For Mr. Camera, I'm just curious, are you guys developing an exoskeleton system so people can actually use that to walk? I'm very impressed with what you saw when I watched you wheel it in. I went, oh, cool, that's the new system. So.
Sure. So that's a great question, for this specific one, we're again targeting so that the patient can walk without the exoskeleton eventually. But as you mentioned, that is something that we would like to go into. For example, the founder for the company, Dr. Yoshiki Sakai, is envisioning, minimizing this device to the point where we can attach it to like a trousers, for example, or jeans that you can just wear around, and that's really ideal for someone who's a little bit older, a little bit weaker in the legs, who needs that assistance to walk around. Again, that's another aspect that we're trying to tackle in the aging society. So that is definitely something that we're looking into.
So, I mean, it's not asked to me, but I just visited a research center here in Pensacola that is actually developing such exoskeletons that are allowing humans to walk. So that's happening right here in Pensacola House.
Well, I'm very familiar with the system Rewalk came out with a few years back, and that's why when I saw that, I said, boy, it's a lot more lighter, compact, that's why I was wondering if that's where you guys were going.
Just yeah, so
You visited the Institute for Machine and Human Cognition?
Yes, just this one.
Yes. Yeah, so they have similar technologies they're working on? Yeah.
Sure. Again, one thing that separates us a bit again is a neural-controlled device. Those are not, which is fine. And, they have different purposes, and so that's something that distinguishes us from that. Yeah.
Another question?
Lord Richard, the Sable folks, do you all do any collaboration with universities in Florida or Georgia?
I'll let you take that. Universities in Florida, Georgia, we haven't worked.
Yeah, so we actually do a lot of collaboration with universities in Florida. We have ongoing programs with the University of South Florida, the University of Central Florida, as well as the University of Florida. This morning, Stan was kind enough to take us to the University of West Florida here, and David and I are going to try to find out how we can work collaboratively with local universities.
Next question? Yes, sir?
J-Bill, how do you develop partnerships with local companies?
Usually, companies come to us, but we'll also occasionally go looking out for somebody. If you have a product you're manufacturing, especially if it has electronics components to it, and you're especially in growth mode, come talk to us. You can look us up on the internet, or you can call myself or Garish, and we'll get you in contact with the right person. But it usually starts out with a conversation like that, and then we'll talk through what the opportunities are and go from there. But yeah, companies usually come to us, or for some reason we'll be calling on them, or we'll be looking at particular industries that we think could really benefit from our services. Aerospace industry is a good example right now. Healthcare is another. Information technology, of course. So we'll go talk to those companies.
Yes, Scott.
I've got a question, I guess, for Wayne Hitachi. Mr. Mori, in one of your slides, you showed the automotive relationship, I guess, in the 80s. And then I guess what stood out in one of the slides that you have is you have a Hitachi company where your predominant two customers are the Ford and Chrysler actually brand. In the supply chain in the automotive industry, have you seen a blend with all of those companies really just kind of competing across, or is that just kind of happens to be this facility here?
Well, let me make sure I understand your question.
Yeah,
So
across the different platforms, like I said before, you would see pretty much just Ford and Chrysler suppliers supplying Ford and Chrysler.
no.
Where you have
it's more and more, well, there's been so much consolidation and mergers that everyone, you still have your traditional, maybe your frame makers and your big suppliers like that, but when you get to the smaller suppliers like what we do here, we're a smaller component, then no, you have multiple customers in one facility.
Okay, next.
So I had a question, probably for all of you, but specifically, Mr. Jones, you had mentioned that your employees have to be able to accept change pretty readily, which isn't something I think about with great fun. So, but in general, for the manufacturing, is innovation like happening quickly that's affecting your workforce?
Well, when we talk about change, yeah, brake lines change a lot, you'd be surprised. But when I talk about change, I talk about in the production lines themselves, introduction of automation. We have to communicate very well to them to understand that that's a good thing. Automation is good because it keeps jobs here. Because our competition is not only other companies, but we have a every month on our activities in CSR. There's a CSR department in Japan that we report to. So it's very important to Hitachi, the social responsibilities. So, that answers your question.
Yeah. Thank you. More questions? Yes.
So my name's Dave Robow with a company called National Energy. So I'm interested in the flow batteries. Where are those manufactured at the moment?
St. Petersburg. It's a tough market because it has to compete with lithium ion, and right now lithium ion is cheaper. It's kind of hard to get the flow batteries to be cost competitive, even though they've got inherent advantages. So that's been a little bit of a challenge, but we've shipped several megawatt hours worth of storage out of our facility in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Yes, sir.
Do you all do any collaborations with startups or either the companies?
Well, I mentioned tile before, that's a good example. When I joined Jabil, people used to complain that we were doing too much business with this little startup company that people thought was kind of risky, and it was a company called Cisco. So it gives you an example too. You pick your companies carefully, you work with them, and sometimes things don't work out, other times they do. But yes, we do work with smaller companies.
Yeah, Hunter?
So I guess this would be targeted at you as well. As far as research and development goes, is that kept in the U.S. or is that also brought over to Japan? So I figured marketing or manufacturing in Japan can be difficult given access to raw materials or something.
So we do research and development all over the world, depending on what the need is and where things are. We're also very sensitive to what our customers need. So if we've got particular customers that are worried about a particular region or a geography, we'll work with them on where to do particular development. A good example would be cell phones, where a lot of the basic development is done in Taiwan or the US, and very carefully deployed at different manufacturing locations to make sure that the intellectual property is protected.
And then with respect to more specifically Japanese research and development, we have a lot of Japanese materials, equipment and component partners. And these folks often work with us here in the US as well as other R&D centers all over the world in order to bring products to market.
Yes.
Yeah, a question for Mr. Johnson. It said in your bio that you attended school through 9th grade in Japan. And I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about how knowing Japanese has helped you in U.S.-Japan relations that you.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough. My family was over there in an area that didn't have any American or English-speaking schools, so I was put in local schools. I made sure my children had the same experience. They said I destroyed their life, but right now they're for the. How it really helps, until you live or go someplace, a lot of times you really don't understand what other people face. I remember my kids coming back from Japan and getting very defensive when somebody criticized Japan because that was their friends. It makes a difference when you walk in somebody's shoes. And where it's helped me specifically is that when I'm in meetings with companies in Japan, people have told me that I seem to instinctively understand what they're trying to get across and where they're coming from. And it's been a real help that way.
Thank you. Yes.
For Mr. Brooks. Brooks,
Sure. Yes.
Cybernet, is that what it is?
Cybernet, yes.
Have you worked with Institute of Human and Machine Cognition here on their exoskeletons? That's our IHMC. And have you been able to place those anywhere in this region?
We have not actually worked with the IHFC, I guess. Through the Brooks Rehab Hospital, we're working to expand our research with, for example, University of Florida, and things like that, but we have not actually done much yet, so that's coming through soon.
Second part of the question was, have you placed your machines in this region?
Specifically in Pensacola.
Northwest Florida?
We literally just opened up our center in Jacksonville